Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I haven't did one of these in a while. My wife alluded to it. She was like, "Hey, why don't you do a 420?" So let's do a 420. And she gave a request, so let's do a 420. I'm looking for the background. It's in here somewhere. But so let's do a 420. So this is a Blaze one if you got one. Life as a simulation. So you can find all the stuff online about this simulation hypothesis. And look, there's various versions of this. But personally, I think people have their heads in their ass when they think about stuff like this. Not completely. It's just, what does your computer looks like? What do you look like from your software program's perspective? It's that type of thing. Even if you could have a conscious program, what would it look like? It's hard to calculate. It's hard to kind of imagine in this case, but I want to imagine it from a different way. Not from just the simulation thing. I want to imagine it from our standpoint. Say we, and as I said, blaze one if you got one, because I want you in the right headspace. So, say for instance, our civilization limps on and we implode. Say we implode for economic reasons. Say we implode for environmental reasons, be it climate change or some kind of ecological disaster that we just can't fathom. Say our birth rates start to decrease because of the stuff we're putting in our foods. That's actually true, by the way. It's fascinating. But say our birth rates start to decrease. Not necessarily from our foods. I'm just saying birth rates are down. Or sperm counts are down. It's one of those. But say it gets worse. Say it gets horrendous. The population of the Earth starts to decrease. Say it's an asteroid. Say it's us. Say we off ourselves. Are you telling me you can't necessarily see the formations of a nuclear disaster? You have Donald Trump antagonizing Russia to some degree. Yes, he wants to be conciliatory, but ultimately you have a Democratic Party that's been rabid about Russia for 8 months. You have an administration that, whether or not he's trying to be conciliatory towards Russia, he is taking shots at Iran. He's also pivoting to some degree against China. Any contest with either of those. So let's say the Iran thing. Or better yet, let's even say the Syria thing. Say a Syrian jet gets shot down. Say a Russian jet gets shot down. Say Trump does something where he pushes the boundaries on Syria. Say it's not even Trump. Say the next person who gets in office is a Democrat, a hawkish Democrat. And say that hawkish Democrat decides to try to undermine one of the governments in one of those countries. Let's say one of those governments is actually allied with one of the bigger governments, meaning a government with a nuclear weapon. You can kind of see the issue. You have people who are these bombastic personalities functioning as individuals, meaning they're functioning with this high opinion of themselves, interacting with other governments. No one can appear to feel weak, because looking weak for the most part is going to get you toppled. And so you have a bunch of bluster. Bluster leads to wars. Say it's some calamity that you can't even think of. Because keep in mind, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, people during that time, we were this close to nuclear annihilation. It's amazing. But say it happens. Now, say in that annihilation, you have people who come together and cobble technology, whatever technology had left. Let's say it's 100 years. Let's say it's 200 years. So let's be ambitious. Whatever that technology is. And they try to make a life for themselves. And in making a life for themselves, they gather a community and they say, look, we don't want to repeat this. What are the things that we've done to destroy our world in this way? Now, you can say this for any of the other disasters, because most of those disasters are man-made outside of maybe a missile strike. Even with the missile strike or asteroid strike, to some degree, it's us not necessarily focusing on the real things, like this planet could be hit by an asteroid. The problem is us. Our values. What do we value? Well, you can see what we value by the things that we do in the world that we have, in our society itself. What did we do that would allow ourselves to destroy the world in this way? Would that level of destruction get a basic, honest conversation? None of the bluster, none of the posturing, none of the it was your fault or their fault. Just bare bones, how do we not repeat this? I would imagine if anything would do it, a nuclear holocaust would do it. And yes, it's morbid. But is it not true? Think of World War II. Joseph Stalin comes together with, they called the man Uncle Joe. The man was a mass fucking murderer. Called him Uncle Joe. But they called him Uncle Joe because at this point he was a buddy. He was helping us fight a larger threat. Now, the moment that the war ended, for the most part, he wasn't just Uncle Joe anymore. They were now an enemy. An enemy that needed to be defied and by all means. So go out and buy stuff, you capitalists. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, at the end of that war, all that destruction, 50 million people died. It still wasn't enough to say, how do we not repeat this? Now, it was to a certain degree, because you did have a certain, at least in Europe, this kind of alliance of sorts. But you can make a case that that alliance was more so to be a bulwark against Russia or Soviet Union. Where do you get the bare bones level? And will the nuclear holocaust do it? Just an emotionally raw and honest, how do we not repeat this? And I would imagine those people will come to a conclusion similar to our values was all wrong. Some of the stuff, I know people I go with a systems theory in regards to how we navigate our world. Meaning, it's not just the individual. There's an individual component, but that individual is encased within a society and bumping into all these realities. Anything that you can say for the most part for the individual, well, to some degree you have to bring in the society for it. But there is a component to that person that's an individual. Like there is a unique there that's specific to who that person is. His range of actions is going to be somewhat different than my range of action in certain situations. It's unique unto itself, even though, yes, it's changed by the things that surround it and its experiences. The values are wrong. And it's not necessarily that the person was born wrong. So don't misunderstand me. That person is encased in a society. You float in this as if it's water. It's like a fish not necessarily recognizing the water that's swimming in. You feel it on you as you walk around. There's a weight to our particular society. There's things that we have on our minds that maybe we shouldn't necessarily have on our minds, like these ideas of debt and money and all this other stuff. That's our society. It's what we wrap around us. I would wager that this idea of personal gain, this idea of what do you value, and if you're valuing purely this idea of the individualistic perspective, or how much I can get out of something as opposed to the whole, that you're essentially going to eat yourselves alive. And that functioning kind of as somewhat of a collective. Yes, you can be individuals, but at the very least have this understanding that there is a wider society. Gets you there. It's like, what are the things you're willing to accept in your particular arrangement of society? I would wager that they would end up at that point of, we need to arrange ourselves in a different way. This didn't work. And we need to instill this thing of values. And how do you instill values? Real values. Meaning valuing the things that are real. Other people. The planet. I would even say science. Exploration. Human fulfillment in that sense. Meaning the things pertaining to the person. How do you instill that into beings that for the most part are maybe not necessarily hardwired for this, or let's say susceptible to issues of petty dramas? How do you instill that into those people to allow them to not repeat the mistakes that we've made in this situation? And how do you do it in a lifetime? And there's the rub. Even if you had this fucking awesome society, aren't you going to have rebels? Aren't you going to have people, rebel rousers, people who don't necessarily like it? How are you going to get your kid to get your experiences? At which point down the line, 10 years, 50 years, do those people repeat the same mistakes that the other people made, leading back to the exact same situation where you have another calamity? What if your technology was to the point where we have VR now? That would be what? 3, 4, 500 years into the future. What does our shitty VR look like in 300 years? Even if you're talking about a Holocaust, even if you, I'm just saying there's elements of that particular society that still had a certain amount of technology, or at the very least had the know-how. They didn't lose it all. They might have had a massive loss of life, but you didn't necessarily lose all of the edifices of that particular society. Would they come together in a collective way and say, all right, we're going to make a choice that we need to instill a certain amount of schooling. We're not going to instill the schooling by beating or by telling and everything else. No, that doesn't work. We're going to instill the schooling using technology. We're going to use technological means. So whereas we tend to go to school for X amount of years and learn whatever, their schooling for the most part is immersion into a game space. In that game space, you interact with other people who are merged in that game space, also in that particular school. The problem is, those people don't know they're in a school, but those people have a very specific goal: to grow the fuck up. Allowing you to essentially live out your life in all of these different ways. You have no memory of where you came from, so it's somewhat of a moot point. Whatever you wake up into the game space, you're in the game space. It's like if today you were kidnapped, dropped into an insane asylum, and every day for 10 years somebody told you you were insane, they would probably think you were insane. You're encased in this. You take it as real. You have nothing else to take as real. And so you function in that, bumping into other people, having all of these experiences, and in these experiences, learning things, growing. One experience after the next. And look, experience at that point is just experience. Whether you're living on the street or whether you're a millionaire, those experiences are there. You get those experiences, you keep those experiences, because ultimately those experiences are for you to grow the fuck up. You finish your life, you come out, you go into another one. You've spent all of 2 or 3 minutes of your real time in the course of the time that you've lived through Bob Hazard, Tom Celery, Jamal Thomas. How many lifetimes do you have to live? And think about it. It makes perfect sense. You would have a situation where you could literally have the elements of your society just grow up. Meaning you have this immense task of arranging the world in a way that's better fucking world. And even if in that game space you end up in calamity, at some point the people grow up. They don't have a choice but to. One life after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. I can see society doing that. If a society said, we don't want to repeat this, like an honest level, and I'm making this point of honest level, politicians lie through their teeth. People in general, when we interact with one another, we lie. Not necessarily intentionally, there's just a mask that we wear when we interact with one another. When I've been in lucid states, let's say like OBEs, it's different. It's not the same. It's your emotions are more raw. It's almost like it's further on the surface. So it's like the things that whatever you're feeling at the time, it comes out in your expression. It's like you express it, if that makes sense. It's like the expression itself is the emotion itself. It's a weird thing. It's like it goes hand in hand. But in our regular life, we don't do that. We, for the most part, have a shield about us. We have a face about us. We have our ascendant. This is the mask to which I wear to interact with you. I'm saying at the end of something like that, that catastrophic, would that point just be an honest, okay, we fucked up and we need to do something better? With that much tragedy, cause a civilization to make that drastic of an action and say we're going to cut these people off from their own consciousness for a period of time to allow them to go through the process of growing up so they can reach a point where we're at now without actually destroying the planet again. And the question becomes, how many of those create the same thing? Ultimately, people are still people. They're just in a digital space at that point, meaning the ideas, the thoughts will just propagate themselves. One society after the next could end up blowing itself up, only to get to the point of saying we need to do something. We need to find a better way to do this. So we're going to create another system, a virtual system, to put those people in. It's like an infinite number of fuck ups leading to people growing up. I guess the point I'm getting at is that's growing up. That's having real values. This market stuff is ridiculous. I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the sense of real things. What's your best way to maximize the potential of a person? That's a real thing. What's the best way to keep the ecology? That is a real thing. These markets are not. And I'd argue this market thing is part and parcel to what would call something like that. Like, so say for instance you have a market-driven solution to, okay, we can make a huge amount of profit by putting out this particular product. Yes, it kills a lot of other stuff that's around, and yes, it has consequences. But hey, we can grow a lot of food. We can call ourselves Monsanto, and we can sell this shit all across the market. Well, wait a minute. Are you sure that's okay? Like, are you sure that's safe? Yes, trust us. We're a corporation. We have your best. We have your best health in mind. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. How do you know? I'm a software engineer. We deal with immensely complex systems, and when you're dealing with those systems, it's like it's no way to get your head fully around what's going on in every cavity of the system. You deal with specific parts, trying not to destroy the whole. That's just software. That's shit that we ourselves wrote. Are you that trusting? I'm just not that trusting with a profit motive in it. That's all. Yeah, man, I don't think the simulation hypothesis is crazy. Like, when you look into stuff like why do we have the speed of light? Well, the speed of which processing takes place. Why do you have like even gravity? Some people making this explanation of gravity was the amount of resources that were being used in a particular area, slowing down space and time. This stuff's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It also gets into somewhat of an explanation of OBEs. What the hell is an OBE? This person is essentially hacked out of that particular digital space. Or when people are talking about being in other areas, like reality frames or other, physical matter realities, other environments. This particular person is now materialized here, and he's interacting with other people in this particular place, and he wakes back up in his body. It's weird, it's interesting. But who the fuck knows if it's true? It's just 420. It's just 420. Alright. Strange becomes normal. Yeah. Media advocate Joe Rogan had a conversation with Cenk and all the people. He said, when he gets to the point of technology, everyone knows everything about everyone, and strange becomes normal. I guess the wow part is, would you put a device in your head if it allowed you to connect to each and every person around the planet? Have you seen Sense8? There's a video. Oh, I love the show. So Sense8, my wife turned me on to this. That people have the capacity to feel one another. It is an amazing show, man. It is wild. It's raw in the way it gives itself. Like it commits. And it's deeply emotional. Now, this is coming from somebody who's somewhat of a cynic and detached. And so for me, I like shows that kind of can reach the heart center. When I'm somewhat blazed or when I'm somewhat buzzed, Yeah, it hits my heart center. Well, I have to be honest. For me, my heart center blows up when I'm buzzed. Stone is too strong. It's not stone, but when I'm buzzed, it becomes more intense. Meaning, it's like what I'm experiencing. So it's like as I'm watching the show, there are these moments where they're absolutely euphoric, and there are these other moments that are fucking depressing. Like even but it's human experience. Like the entirety of the show is based on this thing of these people in all of these different places. All of them are having these interesting, sometimes painful experiences. But each one has a capacity to feel and communicate with the other. And so the experiences that they're having, for the most part, those experiences are shared. It's a fascinating show. But if you could put a chip in your head to allow you to communicate with everyone else, meaning it's like allows you to interact the internet, would you do it? If that became the new phone, meaning I could process information, I can hold information, I can store information in my head just in this little chip, I can communicate with just a little chip, I can see video and everything else just with this little chip, and it interacts with my thoughts. So it reads my brainwaves and it gives me whatever I want based upon my own brainwaves. Would you do it? Black Mirror is better. Yes, you're right. Black Mirror is amazing. Black Mirror is amazing. A hologram is too, it's too simplistic. It's like a data stream. It's like a data stream. That's the way I would say it. Like, meaning, I mean, in mind you, this takes you to weird places. This takes you to amazingly weird places. The catch is, whether it's a data stream or not, it's still real to you. Like, even if it's a data stream, you're encased in it. My bandwidth is really low. Media advocate. The concept of using other person's knowledge immediately at will to benefit. I would wait until it was tested and extremely functional. Now, here's the next question. What does a computer virus look like when you've put a computer into your skull? Jeremy Scott, you're right. It is. I love it. I love Black Mirror is amazing. Black Mirror is absolutely amazing. It's terrifying in a weird way. Like, it's not doing anything that's scary per se. It's just that last episode where the guy was in a cabin and they had the capacity to digitize a person, like pull out this part of this person's consciousness and incorporate it as a computer. And they would say, well, it's not real. How do you know? Oh, it's not real. But the thing was experiencing. It still had sentience. So they would essentially torture the thing. They would leave it on. They would put it in the video games, be shot up and everything else. They had a consciousness, and yet they would torture it using this thing of it's not real. It was amazing. It's amazing. It was like painful to watch. It's like, you know, being a lefty. You have a certain amount of compassion for this thing. Like, I just felt it. Yeah, man. It felt particularly weird and bad to me, and it just felt gross watching that. They created a life only to torture that life. It's this worst aspect of God, where it's like, would God create a thing knowing that thing was going to suffer in damnation for eternity? It's God, right? Shouldn't God know? God is creating a thing that God didn't necessarily know what was going to happen to it. How is it God if God didn't know? But that's essentially what Black Mirror was talking about. You pluck this thing into consciousness, and now you're torturing this thing because you just, you know, don't necessarily care about it. Media advocate, I know. That's oh, what is this? It's animated. It's anime. It's the anime. I can't think of the name of the anime. We went to see it the other day. They had Jessica, Scarlett Johansson. Oh man, I can't think of the name of it. It's gonna come to me at some point. Damn, I can't think of it. It's an anime though. It's a famous anime.
Ghost in the Shell.
That's it. My wife is on the ball. Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell. You know, to me, look, for me, this makes sense. It's like you have some people who are these full-on materialists, and as physics gets more complicated, those planks start to fall away. So it's like, oh, it's not Newtonian. Oh, there's something beyond the Einstein idea of things. Oh yeah, I suspect what they're going to find is there's an interplay between consciousness and our material world, or our physical world. What I'm, in my wildest dreams, at some point in time, science is going to get to the point where it just starts to study consciousness. They're going to be fascinated by it. And it's going to go beyond this idea of nuts and bolts and just material. That's when science is just going to be unchained. Right now, they have their own biases. Michael Stapleton, the golden rule is I am okay, you're okay, accept others where they are and where they're growing to. Yeah, dude, but that's not how people behave. Think about that is not how people behave. And you have this weird thing. Like I find myself not put it this way. I look for this thing of, well, what's right? And you get into this difficult thing of trying to understand what's right because people have different perspectives on it. And so it's not what's right, it's almost like what's right based on what? How do you defend your value system versus somebody else's value system? And ultimately you start boiling down to, well, why are they wrong? Why do I believe I'm right? And as you dig into it, you find yourself in some sense. I put my stake in humanity. Meaning, I don't know if this other stuff is real. What I do know is I have a thing, I have a body. And I know for the most part I can feel pain and distress and everything else. Just like, and I imagine other people. I have to imagine. I have to take it as a leap of faith in a sense. I ask myself, what is the world that I want? That's my question. Like, asking that question, what is the world that I want? And how do I get to that particular world? It helps with this thing of what's right. So for me, I want a world that's somewhat stable. I don't want these wars. I don't want people suffering. All right? Then right off the bat, you end up saying, okay, what gets me that? And what are the things that would allow a world like that to persist itself? If I'm putting my stake in humanity, then yeah, ecology just automatically pops into the picture. Humanity pops into the picture. What are the things that's essentially, how do we build a society that's advantageous to the individual and the person? That's where I go for that. And right now, there is no way anybody can make an argument for our society as being based in real things. We're living in a fantasy land. This is lunacy. I mean, I did a piece just recently showing them bringing out George Bush, who murdered 1 million people in order to say how much he dislikes racists. This is our world. We want free speech, meaning we want people to be free. Being free means that somebody can be free to be belligerent, to be an asshole, to be somebody that you just don't like. All those things are part of the process. No, not abusive. But yes, they're going to have views and all sorts of things that you don't necessarily like. That's the price of this quote unquote free. Now, we don't live in a free society. We have 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's population in our prison. That's the opposite of free. You could be shot in the face by a cop walking to get donuts. That's not free. That's the opposite of free. But when we're talking about free, we're talking about in the sense of human interaction, like in speech. again, look, I just think it's dangerous getting to this thing of free speech. That's all. I think my mind is going to that, which I don't necessarily want to go to. But no, man, I find this part fascinating. I find the simulation thing fascinating. Every society creates its own illusions and plunges the members into one fantasy or another. Look, to some degree, no. But it doesn't have to. I mean, the impetus, it has to do with the impetus, or it has to do with the incentive. We're creating a computer program, whether we realize it or not. And it's not even a program that's done where it's like somebody manipulating, pulling strings. There's no man behind the curtain. You created an incentive structure saying maximize profit. You've bound that to the individual, meaning I myself, the more I have, the higher my status, the more awesome my society tells me that I am. So I'm going to maximize my profit. I'm going to do what I need to do to get as much as I can get. I'm an individual. Fuck everyone else. I'm a capitalist. That's your society. That's how you literally created somewhat of a cockfight economy where each person is just struggling and scraping to get the ends they're trying to get. Nobody can trust anyone else because ultimately each person is trying to advantage themselves. So every deal, for the most part, is looked at with a certain level of skepticism. How do I trust that that person is looking out for my best interests when, for the most part, whether he's going to eat is some degree dependent upon whether I pay him or not? This is our world, man. You have a political system completely crippled by cash. The public itself has no outlet for expression. And you have an oligarchy. I would even make so far with kleptocracy. That's a completely different illusion. Like, that's an amazing illusion. You're murdering people abroad at the same token where you're talking about races in a country. It's just amazing. I mean, we put it this way: we have particularly bad illusions, because that's my point. That's my point. And I'm saying, after a nuclear holocaust, will that society, to some degree, get to the bare bones minimum of just honesty and evading these illusions? Get with the program. Well, I think it is a program. You create an incentive. Once you create the incentive, everybody else just follows suit. It's like dominoes. This person needs to maximize profit. This person needs to get what he needs to eat. This person is doing what he needs to do to make his ends meet. I would make the point that, put it this way, there's no arrangement of this society, this capitalistic society, that's going to be without poverty. The stress that's created in the society itself is killing people off. I mean, it's one thing after the next, man. The things that we're doing to our air, the things we're doing to our water, it's as if the environment doesn't exist. We're creating products purely knowing those products will break, only because we need you to buy the next product. Otherwise, people will lose their jobs, and people are going to lose their jobs anyway to automation, and yet nobody says anything about it. It's an amazing illusion. That's what I'm saying. If this society collapses, the next society is going to look at this society as prehistory in the way that we look at Rome. That's my forecast. I hope that in 500 years someone digs this out the rubble and hear me say this, like, holy shit, this guy was right. Would I settle for an enlightened dictator? No, the model is wrong. I mean, if you're getting an enlightened dictator, you have to trust that the next person is going to be just as enlightened. Where are you getting them from? Jeremy Scott, Garden Gnome eats boogers. Oh, Garden Gnome, that's gross, man. Don't do that, dude. Good looking out, Jeremy Scott. I thank you. I appreciate it, dude. You don't have to do that. I appreciate it. You appreciate it. Oh, Jeremy, Garden Gnome, that's gross, man. That's gross, dude. That's gross, dude. That's a wag of a finger, man. media advocate, but at the same time, we're pulling more people out of poverty at a faster rate than at any point in history. It's something I try to reflect on when I'm upset about politics. Yeah, but you also have desperate poverty that you don't need to have. Meaning, you have a situation of a billionaire stepping over a homeless guy. This guy has 4 houses. This other guy's living on the street. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. I mean, pulling people out of poverty is one thing. Making a world where there isn't poverty is something different. And we have the capacity to do it. We just don't do it. We don't do it. We make ridiculous trinkets that are in the aisles at stores. We use our resources on ridiculous things. We make products that fall apart that are just going to go to waste. We have a finite planet. A finite planet. Think about that. You have a finite planet, and yet the goal of it is to use as many resources as possible because that's how I make more profit. It's not even real. It's not even real. The planet is real. I understand this thing of we're pulling more people out of poverty. Those people want a decent life. Those people should want a decent life because we have the resources on the planet to give those people a decent life. We don't have the resources to spend $1 trillion on a war and provide things for our citizenry. We don't have the resources for one guy or 6 people to have half of the wealth of the planet. And everyone else is dick and piss. I'm just making a point that you're pulling people out of poverty, but you're also exploiting people miserably. Yes, that person is making $3 now when instead of $1. But we could do better. We can do better. And I understand America's, what we consider poverty is not the same thing as poverty around the world. Nowhere near it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the people here, by the standards of the people here, aren't struggling. Not to mention the stress. Like, this guy has a kid that he needs to feed. This guy has a kid that he's trying to put through college. This other guy has a heart thing, but he's also working because he has a wife who's pregnant. We put ourselves in stressful situation after stressful situation. And you would think that you would use the resources of the country to deal with it, to alleviate some of that. Hey, we're in it together. Let's do stuff to try to alleviate some of our issues. So yeah, we're going to make sure each person has health care. Yeah, we're going to make sure that each person can go to school if they want to go to school. That benefits us as a whole. I don't understand why that's not the thing. That seems like any notion of freedom, any notion, the libertarian idea of freedom is ridiculous. You think you're going to be free when other people are out there in the cold? You are insane. Those people are going to come and get you. You're going to continuously have strife and hardship, crime, I would argue war and corruption in your society for as long as you have cash in that society. Or for as long as the values stay the way they are. But I would make the point that the value system is driven by the currency, by the game space. If you had a different game space, you would have a different value system. I guess that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, dude, I appreciate it blowing $20 to say it. It is intense. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. I only make enough to take care of basic needs. I don't get a lot, and working to make only seems like greed to me. Making more. I mean, here's the thing. You're in a game space. I mean, you're stuck in the game space. It's not like you can just say, okay, I'm not going to play this game. Your needs are real. Your needs are real. Meaning, yeah, you need food, clothing, you need a house. You're going to, at some point, if you want to have sex, if you're a guy, you're going to need cash. Women are expensive. I'm not saying buying. I'm just saying dates and whatnot. You have needs. Those needs require cash to be met. Just in our particular society. If we had a different society, it wouldn't necessarily be that way. But this is our society. So yeah. And then you have the other catch of, if anything happens, you are going to need cash to save your ass. In every situation, cash is your decision space. Making more may seem like greed to you, but making more is an essential tool of survival at this point. But your making more is a little bit different than, I have $10 billion. That's a little bit different. I'm suggesting it's a conservative argument. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, media. Yes, you're right. He says it's strange that he's never. Larry Lyons, you and Debbie are a great fit, Jamal. Peace, brother. Oh, thank you, Larry. I had a great time. The audio was fucking up royally, which was immensely embarrassing. It's like, yes, I want her on the show. And it's like, when she said yes, I'm like, holy shit, she said yes. All right, good. Nothing had changed. I hadn't updated, changed, tweaked anything. And then it's like, I'm getting feedback on my end. What do you mean I'm getting feedback? At one point, Google completely crashed, meaning Hangout just ended. I was like, shit. I was like, God, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. I do like, I think the first part of the show went extremely well. I think the last part went extremely well. It was just the technical glitches. But, no, man, Debbie is awesome. Debbie's awesome. I would love to do more with Debbie. That's gonna be her choice though. She's the motivator on that one. Like that it feels weird to me asking for something like that. She has a shitload more subscribers than me, so it doesn't necessarily do anything for her in that sense, unless you're just doing it for the conversation, which is fine. But you know, I don't know the full motivation on that one, like how that's done. But I asked her once, she said yes. I'm not going to push my luck. So, but I'm not against it. I would love to have Debbie on. Debbie can come on anytime she wants. Yeah, keep rolling. Keep rolling. Yeah, the glitches, they were more embarrassing than anything else. I think I'm gonna try to edit them out in the video itself. But I like the interview. I thought the interview was fascinating. Getting to what she's saying, death work. So I've heard people, you know, I used to be in the new agey thing, kind of new agey. I could never get too new agey because I was always at a certain point when I couldn't see it, like when I couldn't get to that stone. Like there's certain stones I could get to. If you're talking to me about OBs, okay, I can get to that stone. I know what that is. I've experienced that. If you're telling me about lucid dreaming, yes, I get it. I can make it to that stone. If you're telling me about spirit guides and stuff, yes, I'm there. But there's some stuff was like, okay, I can't get there. I don't know how you got there. I think you're in the wilderness. I can't decry your experience, but I can't get there. So like I said, there was always I couldn't get to certain parts of the new agey stuff. But this thing of death work, or this thing of X work, you know, let's say like if you were in astrology, you would say, okay, this is a Saturn's return, and your Saturn's return XYZ is taking place. The term was familiar. It's this thing of, in your life, you're being challenged. You're in somewhat of a classroom, and in that classroom, there are things that you're going to encounter, experiences. Your lecture is your experience. It's not anything else. I can't tell you anything. Like you've heard me say, I can't tell a person not to be racist. Hey, stop being racist. It's not good. It's not good for you and your planet. That doesn't work. Experience works. You're hitting the person with experience. Now, what the person is trying to learn in the experience, who knows? But there can be all sorts of things. A particular soul experiences a particular thing the way it experiences it. That's the thought behind it. It's like, you know, it's this idea of if somebody's homeless, that person may chose to have taken that particular life experience for XYZ. It has nothing to do with the corporeal reality perspective of, well, this is our reality, that guy should not be homeless in the first place, so we need to deal with it. But from a higher perspective, looking at it, and look, I'm sorry, I know I'm bouncing between perspectives, but from a higher perspective, in essence, you're looking at it and saying, this particular person wanted to learn X, Y, Z, and this was the best place for this person to learn it, even though it's a really shitty place to be in. Who knows? Who knows? But that's the thought. At least that's my understanding of it. It's this thing of difficult experiences being encountered, and it's just as much as the experience as it is how the person responds to the experience itself. So alright guys, my wife is upstairs. I told her I was going to be upstairs like 30 minutes ago, and she's going to be pissed. So I'm going to end this here. Yeah guys, have a good night. Oh, and like I said, I got a article published in Counterpunch. It's going to be out tomorrow. So I'm uber fucking excited. I used to write blogs before I started doing videos, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and over time I think I got pretty decent at it. Yeah, I think I got pretty decent at it. And so I sent it off to Counterpunch today, and I was like, I wonder if they're going to do it. I wonder if they're going to do it. Are they going to publish it? And I was like, there's no way that they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And within 30 minutes, the guy comes back and says, it'll be up tomorrow. I was like, holy shit, are you serious? So it's going to be in Counterpunch tomorrow. Also, Sam Ronan is going to be here next Wednesday. I'm going to put up a video for that one. That's probably going to be, I'll put up one tomorrow. Yeah, call it good night. All right, guys, have a good night.